Jerry Falwell Jr. Really? This story just broke about an hour ago. Reuters is saying, and Twitter, and everybody's alight with Jerry Falwell Jr. falling. It's just a matter of time, and we kind of all saw it coming, I think. He resigns, and then the story breaks, obviously. He resigned first. I guess he tried to get ahead of it and break it, but there's a conversation to be had here, and it's not a tea conversation. This isn't a place to be like celebrating the fall of these leaders, but it's a place for a conversation to talk about what a lot of pastors and people don't want to talk about. And that is, especially in this case, for Jerry Falwell Jr. So if you don't know anything about Jerry Falwell Jr., okay, he's the head of the school for Liberty University. And Liberty University is the largest Christian university in the U.S. It is crazy. They're very Christian. They have a lot of rules. Jerry Falwell has been accused of having a 7-year three-way relationship with his wife and this pool boy in their relationship. And the pool boy came out and talked about it. And Jerry Falwell Jr. is now out forever. And it just we're on Ministry Monday. We're still talking about this stuff. I just released that video about megachurches and the problem with these big monoliths that are built in the name of the leaders that built them, like the Falwells. And if you don't know anything about the Falwells, like there's a long storied history of like craziness in that family, that they run the school, and it's like they're the ones who built it, and they're like, again, another monolith that falls. We're talking Bill Hybels. We're talking about all these mega church pastors and people who have moral failings. Today, this topic is important. Look, what you do in your marriage is okay. Like, and as I become more post-Christian, it's not like I'm exploring what I can do in my marriage, but I am way more open to things that I never was open to because the church just didn't allow that type of ideology. And some of my friends will hate me for saying this stuff. But as I become more post-Christian and I expand beyond the walls of tradition and all this stuff, my ideology shifts. Look, Jerry Falwell and his wife, if they want to do this behind closed doors, they're adults. The left is celebrating this because he's a Trump supporter. But you can't be, but that's hypocritical. Because don't you love the fact that aren't you cool with it that everybody can be who they want to be sexually and all this stuff? So it kind of irks me a little bit where they just want to see this person who's a Trump supporter fall. And I get that. I do get that. But at the same time, shouldn't this be a higher dialogue for you to say, hey, look, he's just doing something that they agreed to do in a married relationship, and that's cool, right? No one's talking about that. No one really wants to. But here's the problem. You cannot be a pastor and have three-way relationships. You can't have open marriage. Well, unless you're a fundamental crazy Mormon. Not LDS, but the Mormons who have multiple wives and all this stuff. I'm just saying, what Jerry Falwell did in the eyes of people who follow him is like, you can't come back from it. There's a comedian named John Crist, kind of went through the same thing. He used his platform, his privilege, to basically get what he wanted from women. And a lot of them were dating, a lot of them were married. I'm not sure he was in a relationship, but he got ratioed. He got canceled for a little bit, but then kind of came back. And there's a conversation to be had here for the reason that pastors do these crazy things. Now, Jerry Falwell Jr. is clearly a person of immense power on this campus of this university that churns out ministry professionals. Like it's a sports university. It's a very well-attended and very sought-after university in the U.S. What's happening here is that there's been this pattern, even in the last, I want to say 5 years, maybe a little bit longer, starting maybe Mark Driscoll kind of, but there's other ones in there, that all these pastors are just crumbling down. All these megachurch pastors that have built these monoliths, these giant churches, and these giant ministries in their own name, why are they all falling? They're falling, it's because they're idols. God, if you believe what the Bible says, doesn't want anybody. He's a jealous God. He's like, look, I'm God. Nobody comes before me. And he's right. That's the way it should be. But all these people in these churches, and I just got done talking about elevation, you all talk about these pastors like they're God. People who stand up for these pastors who are heretics, or at least have problems in their theology, who go on Twitter, who go on Instagram and yell at people for hating on Driscoll and hating on Stephen Furtick and blah, 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 forgiveness and all the end. And I get it. I do understand that grace is for everybody. Remember, we talked about redemption a lot. Redemption and grace is extended for everybody. Dave's a douche. We talked about it in my Bible Stories of Swearing. He's a douche. He literally stole a woman, got her pregnant, killed her husband. There's redemption for everybody. But look, something is happening in the world right now. I just got off the phone with a new friend of mine, and it's your favorite heretic on Instagram. Go follow them. They're really cool, and he is now part of my tribe. There is a movement happening right now where people are opening their eyes. They're seeing the craziness of these pastors in general. We're going to stick to these pastors who have built these things in their own image and are being worshipped and know that they are being worshipped and love that they are being worshipped and using it to their advantage sexually, monetarily, over power, politically. They're doing this and they know they have the power to do that over their congregation who they're supposed to be protecting and teaching and bringing along. Instead, they're using their power and privilege to do crazy things like cheat on their wives and have threesomes. And a lot of these guys, I think even if you look over at one of the pastors, I forget his name, McDonald, was accused of hiring a hitman to kill his ex-son-in-law. Like, insane things are happening right now. And if we need to open our eyes, this isn't a conspiracy theory when God is involved, okay? When things are happening like this, open your eyes, open your ears, and start paying attention. Start looking closely at your pastor of your megachurch. Who's next? And here's the scariest part, is that pastors have to live in the dark. They can't reach out for help when they need it because they'll be called out and they'll lose everything they have. And some of these guys have built these things up so far that this is all they have. And to be so public and then completely fall from grace like Bill Hybels, who we don't know where he is, he's probably living in Joe Biden's basement, is this thing about that they don't have the opportunity to reach out for the help that they sometimes often need. Now, what Jerry Falwell did is hypocritical. I think what the world hates is hypocrites. I hate hypocrites. I can be hypocritical. You hate hypocrites. Everybody effing hates hypocrites. But everybody's a hypocrite to some degree. Okay? But when you're Jerry Falwell, your hypocriticalness literally will lead to your demise forever because you're telling all your students at your school, you're laying out all these rules for purity and blah, blah, blah. And then you and your wife literally have a 7-year threesome. And again, not judging you for that. You're an adult. Okay? If you like that, if that's something you want to do and you're consenting, I'm for it. Okay? But I kind of understand why these pastors have to live in the dark. I'm just... Again, as I get older and I understand and I become more post-Christian and sex and drugs and everything that I used to think was super wrong and everything else, I'm not saying I don't think is right. And so just having these conversations is really important. I want you guys to be opening your eyes, those who follow these mega church pastors. There is something happening. Either God is taking back this thing that has been not stolen from him, but for lack of a better term, has been perverted, or it's just kind of time for judgment. And this happens a lot in the Bible. Now, I got off the phone with Derek with your favorite heretics. And this is, he I guess he quoted a pastor, and we were saying the same kind of thing. But what's happening here is the deconstruction of Christianity as we know it. You got people who are like, who go to church, who've been in church and they support it and they love it. And they're like, this is the great fallout. This is the biggest thing. No young people are going to church anymore. And everybody's leaving and nobody wants to be Christian. Everyone wants to do their own thing and sin, blah, 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 blah. This isn't a great fall away. This is a great awakening. And this is a really good thing, people. Okay. Periods of our history. This is what happens. Huge things have to shift for the truth to sometimes emerge. Sometimes forests need to be burned down so that new growth can grow and it's fresh and new, okay? What's happening here is a new awakening. And this scares the shit out of these megachurch pastors. This scares the shit out of the people who make tons of money in these churches, who all their power and wealth and influence is all tied up in these buildings where they oversee people. They love the power that they have in there. They have all this stuff. But if you don't see a great awakening coming, you're going to miss it. And you're going to be left behind. You're going to be stuck in this world that doesn't allow you to be a free person. It doesn't allow you to do the things you need to do. And doesn't allow you to have true faith. So you see all this stuff happening. The Jerry Falwell is just one of the big ones. There's so many megachurch pastors who thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, follow these people, hang on to every word they say and believe everything they say, follow the same politicians they tell them to follow, and soak up their ideology and spread that to everybody else, are falling one by one by one. And it's never just like one mistake that they made. Bill Hybels, 30 years he did this. Okay? Jerry Falwell, for what we know, 7 years, and I promise you it's probably way more than that. These men who sit in these power positions, even over churches, cannot escape these sins of their flesh, and it's generally the sins of the flesh that take these guys down. Driscoll's a different story. Mark Driscoll, if you want to get into that whole rabbit hole, he was just a big bully giant asshole. That's what his problem was. He literally was gross. Who's next? Is it Furtick? Is it Johnson? Is it Stanley? I don't know. But guys, keep your eyes open. Keep your ears open. Keep your Bibles open. And start watching and be ready for the Great Awakening. All this stuff has to happen right now. And I'm seeing it. And I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theory, Bible is end times. I'm not saying that. I'm saying if you guys don't see what I'm seeing, the way that social media has changed the game even for pastors and people following these things, and that all these pastors are falling and there's still people trying to protect them, and they're like, well, grace and understanding. Oh, yeah, okay, fine, good. But it doesn't matter. When you're in a position of power like this, you have a responsibility, especially as a pastor, okay? There is a higher responsibility, not even to humans, because humans to humans can say, I forgive you, and you do what you got to do. You're a consenting adult. You want to bang the pool boy with your wife? Cool, that's cool. Do you? But as a pastor, the Bible literally holds you to a higher standard. You will be judged at a higher standard. You will literally be judged more harshly if you teach false truths. Copeland, I'm looking at you. Osteen, I'm looking at you. T.D. Jakes, I'm looking at you. All you assholes in private planes, get ready for it. The Great Awakening is coming for you. And this is going to be highly entertaining for a lot of the people who hate God, who hate Christianity, and they want to see this happen. And it's going to be super heartbreaking for the people who follow you and people who think that the church is tied up on Jesus. But what's going to end up happening after all this is that God will be glorified no matter what, regardless of what any of us believe over here and all the shit that goes down. Because it's just, he's untarnishable. He's literally undefeatable. And he will come out of this. Something is happening. If you don't feel that something's happening right now, start looking more. Start researching more. Start understanding. Start talking to your leaders that you trust. Start looking at these megachurch pastors with a freaking magnifying glass. Because until we get rid of this chaff, okay, until the fire burns down the old forest, the new shit can't grow through. This fire's coming through. And everybody thought that this new wave of fire was going to come through in support of the way church is now, when it's completely the opposite. And that is scary. It's crazy. It's eye-opening. I just got shivers. Like, it's going to be insane. The new revolution, the Great Awakening, the water to wine is happening. And it's literally the deconstruction of Christian church and Christians as we see it, as we know it now. Whew. Get ready for it. Start researching, start understanding it more. Because this is going to be the craziest next 10 years any of us have ever seen as it pertains to Christianity itself. I'm calling it now. And this is just happening to me as I've been fired and I'm learning more about my faith and understanding post-Christianity and deconstruction of my faith, deconstruction of traditional values and all that stuff. This just started happening to me now. And when you start going down this rabbit hole, you start really realizing it's almost like the scales where a lot of Christians will say that the scales don't fall off your eyes until you are into their walls, into their churches, into their theology. But right now, the scales are actually falling off the eyes of people who have gone through that, who have graduated from those churches. Those are the scales that are falling off right now. Whew. This is crazy. So I just got that tweet. Saw Jerry Falwell falls. Bill Hybels fell. McDonald fell. Driscoll fell. Big, giant megachurch pastors, all falling, all over the U.S., Canada, and all over the world, all falling. The Great Awakening is beginning. That sounds super tinfoil hat. I'm sorry. I know that, but I'm just telling you. This is why you guys, you know that I'm not like that. I'm not this guy that just follows these conspiracy theories and everything. The end times, we're never gonna know. If you want to talk about end times, here's my thing on end times. We're not gonna know. And so anybody who says they know, they're full of shit. So I don't know. But I'm telling you, this Great Awakening, what I'm seeing here, what I'm hearing from you, what I'm hearing from my friends, from my pastor friends, from people who are leaving churches, is that something is happening with the deconstruction. The Great Awakening has begun. You should be scared, you should be excited, but you should be ready. Well, that was my second video of the day, and that was nice. Sorry, that was a little bit fire and brimstone, but it's not fire and brimstone. That's actually, there's a new hope, and that is really, really cool. That is really, really, really cool. I'm excited for it. I'm excited to finally feel like maybe something that, maybe the shit that went down with me, with my ex-church and everything that went wrong was God's timing to set me on a different path. Maybe. It sucks that it happened, but maybe. I'm not close to anything. So thanks for watching today, guys. 2 videos. It's long. I'm sorry. But I had to say this. This is breaking news. Jerry Falwell and his wife and the pool boy. And so this just set me on this rant and about this, what we're going to be talking about soon. So I am going to be interviewing your favorite heretics, which you can follow them on Instagram, about their platform, about what's going on, about why they're growing so fast, about why this movement itself is growing so fast. And I'm very excited for it. You should be too, because for those of you who hate the church, who think that you hate God, possibly, I don't think that's the truth. I think that you hate the God that the church has created for you. That for the world. I don't think you understand the real one. And then when you finally start realizing it, that it's less about the closing you off to the things that you think are wrong, or that the church thinks are wrong, or whatever, and you finally have freedom in understanding things will change. That's the awakening. People don't know the real God because the church does not represent God the way that he should be. Wow. Okay. Like and subscribe, hit the bell. Where is it? Down here. Hit the bell, because this is just going to get crazier as we go forward. This is going to get crazy. We're going to be covering the Great Awakening live on YouTube. Woo! I'm excited. Are you excited? Like, let's do this. You're awesome. Dang.